So I want to add a subway tunnel to my layout. I have a plan for an elevated section on the street here in the back. It won't be operational, it's just going to go about 4 feet left to right, but I also want to have a subway tunnel section as well, something underground under the street that we can kind of peek into and just get a sense of the subway without making a full-on subway system. So it'll only be about 8 or 10 inches long. I'm going to try to put a mirror at the end, and it's going to go right here, and let's take a look at the spot that it's going in. So this is the end of the layout that I've been working on, and right about here there's an odd corner. This wall's at about a 15-degree angle, and then it meets that wall. So I was able to use this space to to extend this whole scene, and like I said, I'm going to add this elevated subway section that goes here, and it dies off into the wall there somehow. And I've managed to leave this space for maybe a subway tunnel. So that's what I want to do today. And what's going to happen is I'm going to take some track there. So right here, through the fascia, we'll be able to see this tunnel of these 2 subway tracks under the street. So this will get filled in. And we'll have our subway down here. Also have our elevated subway up top. And then eventually there will be buildings, a big backdrop like that. Just to give you an idea, it's sort of just mocked up for now. And this will continue that way. This goes that way. So again, this is only about less than a foot. So we'll have to put a mirror at the end to make it look like it's going to keep going on and on. I'm not going to curve it. I don't want to screw around with that. I don't mind seeing the other end of the tunnel. At least it extends it another foot. So that'll probably be just enough. So we need to come up with some tunnel walls, a floor and a ceiling. And I want to build the unit separately so I could just slide it in and slide it out if I need to do any work on it. So we need to make a box that fits into there like a sleeve. It's going to be 12 inches long by 4 7/8 wide, and then 2 7/8 high. And within that box will be 2 tracks. And down this end we'll have a mirror. So it extends the tracks and doubles them. And then the walls, we're going to have these manholes, which are every 20 feet or so. If you've been on the subway in New York, or maybe other subways have these as well, every 20 feet there's a depressed section that a person can fit, so a worker can stand there and let the train go by safely. So we're going to add those as well. And the best way to do that is with the laser cutter. So I'm going to need 2 walls for each side that have these openings every 20 feet or so. And then we'll probably have some columns as well in the center. And then we'll probably run some utility cables at each column. And then of course the track. And if we're feeling ambitious, we might put a couple of lights in. We'll see. So we're going to lay this out in AutoCAD first. And we're going to laser cut this out of 1/8 inch MDF. So I've worked out a little system here in the computer. This is the floor, this will be the ceiling, and I've made some holes every few feet for columns. Those columns will be down the center, and these are the manhole openings that I told you about. So we'll join this wall to this wall, so it'll be a double thick wall, and I've added some tab and slots, so it's an easy construction. So let's get this in the laser cutter and see if these pieces work. So this is 1/8 inch MDF, and to save myself some time gluing some of the parts, I'm going to add some 3M transfer tape to the back. It'll just be a lot neater and go much quicker. So now we have most of the parts we need to assemble this tunnel. And what I'm going to do first is get this. This is 2 layers. This is the manhole openings with the back wall with the tabs. So I'm going to remove my backing to the 3M transfer tape. And now I can secure these 2 pieces. So eventually this will go into the floor here, like that, and then our track here and here. So I've determined the height of the columns I need, so I'm just going to cut a bunch on the chopper here. So a slight change of plans. I've added this piece, which will go on the top, right here on the ceiling. And what we'll do is we'll put our columns in now. So now the columns are properly spaced and they'll be held together up at the top here and they won't rack so much. So now I can get some glue in here. So the next thing I'm going to do before we paint these is string some utility cables. They're often seen on the columns or on the side of the walls, and they're hung from each column with brackets. And we sell these laser cut brackets, so that's what we're going to use. We're going to put one on each column. So I have this wire here, this black wire, and it's probably about a 32nd inch in diameter to fit through these brackets. So I'm going to fish each one through until we get a bunch going. So I've got all my cable in. It was a little tedious, but it was worth it. And I made a little styrene steel frame here for the cables to dive into, like a junction box at the end. But all this is going to get painted black now. So I'm going to spray paint all 4 of these assemblies before we do anything else. So originally I was thinking I could just leave this black, but I think when we look down the tunnel, the black is just going to eat all the light that was left, if there's any at all. So I'm going to use a few different shades of gray. On my palette here I've got, these are all Archive X colors. This is SP Lark Light Gray, Light Reefer Gray, Engine Black, and SP Lark Dark Gray. They're all in the same family. I'm going to start with the medium gray here. This is the Lark Light Gray. So I'm going to start from the top and just assume some kind of weathering pattern where a lot of this stuff is wearing down the walls. I'm highlighting a little bit around the manholes openings just so we could see them a little better. And I think I'm just going to end up having to layer a lot of color on this. And if I add lighting, it'll be worth it, because all this stuff will show up to some degree. Now if you're doing this and you put too much color like I just did right there, don't ever worry about that, because you can always take it back with a black on top of it, which we'll be getting to shortly anyway. Here's a lighter gray. Okay, so now I'm going to switch to some enamel paints. These are paints, enamel paints from AK Interactive. I've got moss deposits, dust, dirt and deposits, decay deposits, streaking grime, and light rust wash. And all of them are going to be diluted with some turpentine here. I'm going to dip my brush back and forth. We'll start with decay deposits. So while those walls are drying, I'm going to prepare these chevron stripes. These are going to go alongside the walls. And of course they're too bright white, so we need to weather them. So I'm going to just use the dust and dirt deposits again. And it's just to make it more of a off-white. So I've already put some double-sided tape on the back of this. It's going to make it easier to apply to the tunnel walls when we cut these out. So we're going to put these stripes running down the length of the tunnel, right about there. And instead of cutting individual pieces, it's easier to just go straight across the openings, and we'll remove the pieces there after. So let's peel away our backing. So I applied the same paints, the sponge and the enamels, to the ceiling, and it'll just give it some depth if the light hits it. So we're going to do the same thing on the floor. So now we have to figure out what we're doing for track. And I've got this track that I've already spray painted the ties brown and sanded the paint off the rails. So I'm going to do a couple of things to secure the track. First I'm going to use my transfer tape. And this is more of a temporary hold. I know over time it might not work, but while I'm getting ballast in here and everything else, it should do fine. And just as a precaution, I'm going to use some CA glue in a couple of spots that we'll never see. Here. So now we're going to add some ballast, and I'm wondering why I even painted the bottom of the floor in the first place. I wasted my time there. That's okay. So I've got some, this is black cinders or fine coal for ballast. I want it to be black, so we'll use this. And my only concern is that I'm doing this directly on the masonite, so I don't want to overload it with alcohol and glue because it's got nowhere to go, so I got to go light when I do it. So this is isopropyl alcohol in a spray bottle. And I don't want to go too close. If you're ballasting track or anything with scenery, if you go too close, air is going to come out first and kind of push all your material away. So I start pretty high up and just kind of let it rain down on the surface a bit. And once it gets slightly wet, we can get in and do a soaking, but not too much. So let's just start with that side first. And this is white glue and water, 50-50. So off camera, I decided to spray the track black. It really wouldn't have brown ties. Everything gets black in the tunnel. So all I need to do is sand off the rail tops. So I've got these LED lights. My friend Mark gave me a bunch of these to try and play with, and I haven't done anything with them yet. So I'm going to give them a try. These are from Evan Designs, evandesigns.com. They've got every size you can imagine. These are about 3 volts a piece. And eventually they'll go into this terminal, which gets plugged into this supply here. So we're going to feed them through our pre-drilled holes here. So we have 2 lights, but if we put a mirror at the end, that'll be 4. So that'll be a nice length of lighting. So what I'm going to do is, what am I going to do? I'm going to take some CA glue, if I can find it. A little bit there, a little bit there. That'll dry shortly. And I'm going to feed it through our ceiling holes here. So now we need to get this sealing on. So I'm going to take some CA glue. And I'm not going to rely on this completely because eventually the walls will be holding this all together. But this will help a little bit. Okay, that fits nicely. Our lights are still flopping around, but we'll take care of that later. It's more important that we get this secure. So I'm going to do this. So I'm going to take some wood glue to these joints. So for now, we will let this dry and get back to it in the morning. So the assembly is dry, so now we can get to putting this mirror in place. And I would have liked to have used glass, but I don't want to cut glass, so I found this on Amazon. This is just plastic mirror sheeting, and it's easy to cut like styrene. It's distorted, but I think if I put it on the back of this masonite, this rigid material, it would stay stiff and won't be as distorted. And it's all the way in the distance, so I'm not too concerned. Again, this is just to imply some distance. If it's a little irregular, that's okay. So I'm going to just mount this to the board with some 3M transfer tape. Okay, so let's see if this works. I'll put that right there. We'll hold it temporarily there and take a look. Unfortunately, it kind of looks pretty crappy. But you can see how much distance you get with the mirror. You take it away. That's how short the tunnel is with the mirror. Of course, it looks much better, but this is not going to work. So this isn't going to work. So I'm going to try to pull this apart, clean this up, and maybe even keep the case in case there's a light leak. This will kind of help because it's pretty close fit and I want it to work, so let's clean this up. So let's dismantle this without breaking it, and I'm wondering if there's a pin I could just push in there, or I could just use brute force and make it work. So I've got that cleaned up as best I can. I did try to pry it out, but I did chip it already, so I'm not going to monkey with it anymore. And what I think I'm going to just do, instead of gluing it and adding filler, is just tape it. I do want to make this so if I have to remove it from the layout, I can, to clean it or change some LEDs or something. So we're just going to use some duct tape. So I need to wire this so they go to a larger wire, this one, and this is what will go to the terminal that'll be mounted under the layout somewhere. So both of these have to get wrapped around here and soldered to this, and this wire is 28 AWG. It's exactly what it says there, rated for 36 volts, 5 amp, and that's what you use to feed the rest of these LEDs. You could use these, but this is so thin. This is a lot more easy to handle when you're fishing it around the layout and wiring it up. So I've got red and red, simple enough. And then here, I'll take my red and get it wired with these guys. That goes there. And this goes to the black. So I'm going to tape this down temporarily so I can solder it and not have it move too much. I've got some flux, so I'm just going to cheat here and put some solder right there next to it and make some kind of connection. That seemed to work. So I'm going to neaten this up with some tape, just to keep that wire protected. This is our end here, which we need to strip. Let's get this into the terminal so we can test it. Our power supply is here. So it's still daylight out. It's not completely dark, but I think it'll be dark enough to take a look here. Let's take a look inside. Oh, that's really nice. I could see a bunch of things I would have done differently already. I would not have put the lights between the columns because they kind of get lost when you go at a certain angle. They probably should have been either on the wall or above the tracks on both sides. But I still think it works pretty well. I've added some trash here, a couple of bottles, some newspapers, and cardboard box. The other thing you'll notice I left out, of course, if this is New York City subway, there's no third rail. So that's missing. I don't think it'll be missed though, because you're only really viewing it from here. And it's just a small slice of the subway that we're trying to represent. So I've drilled a hole here, and I'll be able to hide that wire. So I'll slide this guy back in. See if we can feed this. So now the wire is hidden, and we can remove it easily if we have to. And now the street can get built. So the terminal's here under the layout. It's a temporary spot. I'll probably put it somewhere else and mount it something a little more secure. But now here's our tunnel. And because it's against the wall, you're less likely to look at it head on. You're going to kind of see it just as you're seeing it here. If it was in the center, you're more likely to see a reflection. And if I keep a subway car in there permanently, which is fine, you're less likely also to see a reflection. You can kind of see it down there at the end, but you're going to be viewing it from here, and once everything is built, it'll just add to the whole flavor of what New York City is supposed to look like on the layout. I'm really glad I got this project done. It's something I've wanted to do for a long time, probably since I was about 8 years old, riding the subway in New York, and it's going to motivate me now to keep going on this section. I'll do the street above it next, the buildings behind it, and then eventually the elevated subway section. Thanks to our Patreon supporters. If you want to see more content, more behind-the-scenes stuff, and how-to techniques, we also do an exclusive video once a week only on Patreon. Check us out there. And if you want to check out some kits on our website at fosskits.com, you might find something for your layout. And we'll see you next time. Thanks.